tuning in, for listening. It is our intent by doing this that we keep Virginians safe, 8.5 million to be close to exact. And we also want to continue to provide accurate and updated information. So we appreciate all of you for being part of this. I'll be glad to take questions.
Maybe a question for the Secretary of Public Safety. We've had multiple people reach out to 8 News saying that an inmate at Sussex 1 has tested positive for COVID-19. Is that true? How many inmates in any state correctional facilities tested positive for COVID-19?
Thank you very much for the question. The question is, information that is out on social media in particular that inmates have tested positive at any of our correctional facilities in the Commonwealth. The short answer to that is no. As of this moment, there are no positive tests in our correctional facilities. You know, in a time of crisis, it is so important to be truthful and honest with the public, and that's exactly what the governor is doing. We are being as transparent as possible. There are no positive tests. And as we have stated before, Department of Corrections has taken extraordinary measures to prevent the interaction that the governor speaks of, to stop the social interaction. We have suspended visitation. We have restricted, actually suspended transfers from local jails to our prisons. And I should mention, the Department of Corrections has now provided 2 free phone calls per week for our inmate population so they continue that very vital interaction with their family and community. So again, we are going to do our best to continue to dispel the misinformation that exists, and that is why the governor is here before you every morning to give the truthful information. So I appreciate very much you asking that question.
As a follow-up, similar subject, and the same for the governor, is the state considering a possible release of inmates who may be more susceptible to the virus if a problem were flagged?
Again, thank you for the question. The question being, is the state considering release of certain inmates who may be susceptible? You know, from day one of Governor Northam's administration, we have communicated to the parole board to review each and every parole-eligible individual over 60 years of age, because in the Commonwealth, we have geriatric release for those 60 or 65, depending on the length of their sentence. And so from day one, the governor has given that direction to our parole board. We are in communication with them to try to identify and expedite cases. I will tell you, we cannot release someone who does not have a place to go. The home plan for health care to be provided to that particular individual is paramount. I mean, it would be immoral, it would be uncaring to release someone from our correctional facility without a proper health care plan in place. So I can tell you, we are expediting any and every one of those reviews and doing everything we can to not allow the virus into one of our facilities, but then also to address it on an individual basis to expedite release if it is called for. And of course, public safety continues to be paramount.
So is the state asking for parole boards to keep in mind the potential for somebody who may be up for parole, who may be in a category that is more likely or more susceptible to getting COVID-19 in their consideration of that person's release?
If they are, yes, to answer a simple question. Again, if we can keep the virus out of one of our prisons, that is first and foremost, and that's why the interaction itself is being suspended. And of course, the governor already gave guidance to our local jails and the entire criminal justice community for those low-level offenders who would be more properly cared for at home. Use electronic home monitoring. There are alternatives to incarceration, again, to ensure a level of interaction between our staff and other inmates and reduce that to a minimal level to address this virus.
Along the same lines, we heard the calls to take steps to reduce the jail population.
The question being, the reporter, Ned Oliver from the Mercury, has communicated with various prosecutors and judges with respect to our guidance that there is a belief that those who are already in jail may in fact be safer than being on the outside. And that may very well be the case, but with respect to a low-level offender, we were hearing from our local sheriff community that they would like to make space in their jail so that in the event of someone who would contract the virus, they would have the opportunity to isolate that inmate. You would not want that inmate infected to have access to the general population, for instance. So our sheriff community to us asked for direction, guidance from the governor so that all players in the criminal justice system would hear that message loud and clear that some extraordinary efforts should be made for those level offenders who do not present a danger to the community to be considered for release for alternatives to incarceration.
Yeah, this is a follow-up along the same lines. Have any inmates been tested for COVID-19, and if so, how many?
Thank you for the question. The question being, have any inmates been tested for the COVID vaccine? When you say inmates, I can speak to our Department of Corrections inmates. I do not have the data on the jail community, though we are certainly engaged in those communications. But as you know, we have over 60 jails, regional jails, local jails, and sheriffs, independent sheriffs who run those jails. So amassing that information is somewhat difficult, though we are working very collaboratively and cooperatively in communicating. For purposes of the inmates, to date, I'm not aware of any who have actually been tested for the COVID. Some have been presented for testing and frankly haven't met the guidelines instituted and followed by Department of Health. I will tell you there was an employee of another one of our correctional, our public safety agencies was tested and was fortunately negative, and that was great news for the Department of Juvenile Justice. But to date, there have been none tested, and certainly, again, that's a piece of information we plan on being very transparent about.